All right, another Logic Pro for iPad video. Just had to keep going on this because I've been spending some time playing with it. And as I said in my last video, I'm just blown away by this app and wanted to keep going on it because, you know, when you start learning something, if you don't keep pushing for a little bit, you're going to lose everything that you just picked up. So what I want to do here is show you something I played around with last weekend. I went on a fishing trip. I got to take my boys with my dad, with their grandpa fishing. So it was like a perfect pre-Father's Day thing. And what I'd normally do on a trip like that is take lots of video, lots of photographs. But this time I actually recorded a lot of sound with my iPhone. The plan was to take those sounds and turn them into something musical. And so that's what I'm going to do here in this video. It's going to be a little bit unorthodox, but the sounds that you're hearing are all stuff that I captured with my phone. And if I had been really smart, I probably would have captured like the sound of me hitting some boats or something like that so I could get some percussive sounds. But I just kind of had to play around with the software until I was able to create something percussive. So I'll show you a bunch of sounds that I've got already made on the iPad and show you how I made them. And then I'll just put a little idea together and see if we can make something musical. The thing is, when you make something like this, you're really going to learn the software. So it's like, I'm fine-tuning samples, I'm using lots of effects to make a sound, as opposed to, you know, just taking some loops and putting something together and arranging something. This is actually using the software and pushing the software to its limits. And I gotta say, this thing just continues to blow me away. This Logic Pro for iPad has to be one of the funnest things I've played around with in a very long time. It changes the way you can make music on an iPad. I've learned some things about it too, so I'll show you some of those things that I got wrong in my last video. I also found a video by a follower of mine, Jeffy G, believe it or not. And he just did a video on taking songs from the iPad to Logic and back to the iPad, or kind of going back and forth. So I'll put a link to that in the description as well. So let's get into it. I'll show you the sounds that I've made, and then we'll try and make a little bit of music as we go. One thing I should mention before I get going on anything is just the fact that, as somebody pointed out on my channel, if I just tap and hold, look what happens. You can select. And in my last video, I was like, oh, I don't know how to select stuff. And of course, that works in the editor as well. So you just go like this, tap, hold, and now you can select notes. Oh, whoops. Got to make sure I clarify that, yes, it's very easy to select notes in Logic Pro for iPad. Very cool. So as I said, I used voice memo to record. And all you have to do is go in the voice memo settings on your iPhone and make sure you turn on lossless recording if you want to capture high quality audio. But I don't know if anyone's going to notice a difference between their compressed audio and the lossless audio when I'm doing this kind of stuff. All you have to do on your iPad is get voice memos open, and then just tap these three dots at the top and click slide over. Now that's going to exist over on the right-hand side. So if I just disappear that, eventually it goes away. And then if I want it back, all I have to do is slide over, and there's my voice memos. And I can see all of the recordings that I just did last weekend. We've got the sound of water splashing. I've got my little guy saying, "Here, fishy, fishy."
Knock it down a wee bit.
Here, fishy, fishy, fishy.
Turn that into a synthesizer. I've got the motor of the boat. Made a little sound out of that. I've got some fishing reels. Getting those repeating clicks, get some really interesting sounds. I've got some birds. I got a chipmunk. I don't think I did anything with that. Got some really interesting bird sounds, which I'm just going to put as a loop in the background. So that's the kinds of sounds I started with. And anytime I wanted to work with one of those, I just slide over, find the one I want. Let's grab the bacon. So I just click on it, drag it over. And then as soon as I drop it, it says, do you want to make a sample alchemy patch, which I'll show you today. Make a quick sampler patch, which is probably the first place you might go to do some editing, especially if you want to slice something up. And then make a drum machine designer, which I would usually go quick sampler, then drum machine designer. And I can show you a little bit of that as we go as well. So what I did with the drum sounds is take the water splashing, dragged it over, and went to the quick sampler. And this one has way too many slices in it. So what I probably want to do is just go over to classic for a second and maybe find the spot that I want to sample. So just start at a better spot. Let's actually just turn looping off for a second. No loop. So if we start something like this and just take that chunk right there, I'm going to go like this and go to Functions and Crop Sample. That gets it a much smaller chunk, and then I can hit Slice, and then I get a lot less slices. So once I've done that, maybe take the sensitivity down a little bit, just get a bunch of slices. So I got all these neat little slices. I'm going to click that button right there, and then I'm just going to go create Drum Machine Designer track. So that's exactly how I made the slices for my kit to begin with. So this is the kit now that I made from those slices. And all I did is went through until I found little slices that actually felt like they might be a good starting point for a drum sound. So then I got those sort of whittled down to a bunch that I just you just press this little edit button. And as soon as you do that, you can take any slice and drag it anywhere else and drop it. And if it's something else there, it'll actually swap it, which is really nice. So I've got, whenever you want to put effects on a single pad or a single slice, all you have to do is hit the pencil button, tap the sound you want, and then hit the little settings button in the middle. We'll start with the kick. I'll show you what that one looked like. And I love this little overview of the effects that you've got. It's very much like Ableton. Really easy way to see the inserts that you've got on there, but we can also go over and see the sends. So tap right there, you can see I've got reverb and delay as send effects set up on this project already. So here's my quick sampler. If I want to go back and edit just the kick, I double tap on that and we can see the slice as it exists in the sampler. So that's all I did, is went with the quick sampler on this one. We'll go back and look at the EQ. So let's turn off a bunch of effects on here. Here's the kick before the effects. Doesn't sound much like a kick, but we go over to the channel EQ, turn that on, and we're starting to get a lot more low end, got a little bit of high end. I love this EQ. Look at this. You want to put an EQ on? Let's just, let's go over to this one right here. Drag it up, you pinch to change the Q value, and you move up and down to boost or cut. It's so intuitive, what we've been kind of dreaming of for a very long time. Anyways, really nice EQ. And of course you can see all the frequencies in it. Nice little overview as you're working on it. I turn on the chroma verb, and this is where I just went and added kind of like a resonance to it, with a kind of tight, short chamber reverb. So this chamber reverb and a pretty short decay time. Put that on. We get a little bit more of a kick drum sound. No, it's not a kick drum, but it's just, I wanted something kind of deep and low end. And then did the same sort of thing with like my snare sound. So I'll hit the pencil for that guy. You can see I've got a compressor on there. And here it is without all the effects on that one. You can hear the reverb from the send effect, but that one, you know, I added a fair bit of EQ, found a spot that I didn't want resonating in there, and then a boost on the high frequencies. And then this is kind of my hi-hat. Those are going to be my main percussion sounds for this little idea. I do have one more kick. This one's actually a slice I've got from the water splashing. And I feel like we could make a better kick drum sound out of that one. I'm going to take it down a few semitones and probably put a filter on that. And not only that, we've got some serious water sounds coming after. Maybe we'll just fade this out. There we go. Let's click this little button and we're going to go save as, maybe mic pop kick. And then we're going to go back over to my water splashing kit and see if we can pop that one in. So that guy's not being used. Let's click on that one. And we're going to go over to the browser. So there's our browser. So now if I go over to plugin presets, we can go to user, and there we can see mic pop kick. So we're just going to load that one up. And now we've got the mic pop kick on there. We'll go through that whole process of adding the chroma verb. Let's set that to a chamber. Really fast pre-delay, so the sound of the reverb kicks in right away. Perfect. And then let's go over to the EQ. and play around with that for a second. Okay, we can see a ton of super low end energy on that, which I can't even hear. So I'm just going to drag this filter and get rid of some of that super low end. And if I squeeze it in, we can get a more drastic slope. And then we're going to take another EQ. That. Except maybe put a compressor on it just so we don't get it getting out of hand. Show presets, we can just go right to drums. Let's get a rock kick. Oh, wow. And if I want both of these kicks to trigger at the same time, I can just hit the pencil button, tap that, and we're going to go, let's set the input note on this to C#1, which is the same as the other one. So if we set it to C#1, now they're both triggering at the same time. And I've already got a beat that I played in here, so I can now play this and that new sample is going to trigger at the same time. Just okay, maybe that water sound's going to drive me crazy after a little while. Okay, so we got our beat. We're good to go with that. I do have some birds that I just dragged in as a sample in the background. So those are just kind of playing. Let's look at some of the other instruments I've got in here. Look at that, you even have a defeat solos at the top. Man, they thought of everything in this software. So next thing I'll show you is this propane tank thing. And here you can see the sample that I pulled in was the propane. So this one's kind of fun. I went into Beatbreaker, which is another new thing. Find the spot on the sampler that I wanted. So let's go over to Beatbreaker and turn it off for a second. So that's all it is. And then I put a Beatbreaker on there. Let's double tap on that. And just started messing around with it. Went to skip around. And let's start playing around with some of the repeats in here. So you can see these are spots where I've got a repeat going on. Let's click on this one right here and go repeats. Let's take that up to 8 is the maximum. I'm just going to leave that as a little pulse that's happening in this. So you can hear it right here on this track. Let's have a listen. Now we're going to start putting in some instruments. So let's go to this reel that I've got recorded, which is, double tap on that, and you can see it's just one little tiny chunk of that fishing reel sound. So again, this is the fishing reel sound right here. So that's how I've created the sound, by just finding a tiny little chunk, putting it on classic, and then turning the loop on to forward. Watch what happens here. Isn't that cool? So you can see you can make almost any note just by changing the period of how fast those little clicks are repeating. I did put chroma verb on it. Not doing too much, just kind of extending the sound a little bit. But what I need to do is find out the tuning of this note. So I'm going to click plus, and you can see there's a tuner in here. Just search for it up top. And I just use the tuner to figure out the note. Okay, so right now a C is showing a G sharp. So if it's a G sharp and I want it to be a C, I need to go 1, 2, 3, 4 semitones up. Go over to the tuning right here. I'm just going to go up. It's at -5. We're going to go to -1. And you can see it's a tiny bit flat. So if it's a tiny bit flat, I need to go right into the sampler itself and go to the fine tuning. And then go back. There we go. Now we've got a perfectly tuned C. Now we've got a really bizarre synthesizer made from a fishing reel. Okay, so I'm just going to leave this as kind of an interesting little color line up at the top. So I'm going to go over to my keyboard. The notes I'm going to use in this little song is from the Dorian scale. So the Dorian scale goes in F anyways, is kind of like a minor scale, but with a major 6. So the 6th scale degree is going to be raised. So that's the Dorian scale. It's like a minor scale with one change note. I like to play with that one a lot just because it has a more positive sound than just going minor all the time. So let's click on scale, and I'm just going to go to F, and then I'm going to go to the scale and Dorian. There we go. Okay, so let's play that in. So the bass sound I made from the sound of the motor. There it is right there. And let's have a look at what it is. Double tap, and it's sample alchemy. So for this one, I set it to additive. If we go to granular, I set it to loop. And as soon as you set it to loop, you get the second point where you get to choose where it is looping. And then I just played with the tuning based on how it was working with my tuner. So we got it in tune. Then I put a compressor on it. I set it without the compressor. Just got some more volume out of it. And then the EQ to boost the low frequencies. And to really cut some of the high frequencies out. The swing one is really interesting. The place where we were camping had a kids' playground, and the swing set was really squeaky. And I've got just a really tiny chunk of that swing looping over and over. And then what I did is went to the amplitude envelope of it and set it to a slow attack. Actually, that's kind of beautiful like that. With a long release. Maybe I'll go with that instead of the longer sort of pad-like sound. Let's just end with one more little, I've got the Here Fishy synthesizer.
Fishy, 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 fishy.
That's my little guy going, Here Fishy, fishy.
Fishy, 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 fishy.
And then I just took that one note and then turned it into a little synth lead. So let's have a look at what this guy is. Double tap on it. All it is set to the granular synth. I don't think I did much else to that. Played with the tuning. You hear that word here. We get a little cleaner if I add more grains, more little tiny chunks that it's repeating. Actually, you know what we could try is going over to the chord strips and see if we can find some chords that work with this. And one thing I forgot to mention in the last video was that up top you've got inversions of the chord, and in the bottom we've got what you'd normally have is a root fifth, root, which is a really common thing to do with a bass line, right? So here's an E flat chord, or here's a D flat chord. Here we got, so it's like root, fifth, root, and then you've got a chord up top. So you can really go back and forth like that with these chords. So there's with chords. Let me just do a little solo-y thing instead and kind of play this out. And just let me know what you'd like to see more videos on. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.
Fishy, fishy, fishy.